Thanksgiving at my parents' house has always been loud. Not joyful loud, competitive loud. The kind where voices overlap, plates clatter a little too hard, and every conversation feels like it's being scored by someone invisible. That year, I arrived early. I always did. I brought the pies, the wine my dad pretended not to like, and the quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, this year would be different. It wasn't. The moment I stepped inside, the smell of turkey and tension wrapped around me like a memory I couldn't shake. My mother was already flustered in the kitchen, my sister's voice carrying down the hallway before I even saw her. "Dad, I told you it's not a big deal. She won't mind." She, that was me. I took my coat off slowly, bracing myself. My sister Emma stood at the counter, perfectly styled, scrolling on her phone, while my dad hovered nearby like an audience waiting for applause. She didn't look up when I walked in. "Hey," I said. "Oh," she replied, glancing at me briefly. "You're here already?" Already, like my presence was inconvenient if it arrived too early. My dad turned, smiling wide. "There she is, our responsible one." I smiled back, the automatic kind, the one I'd practiced since childhood. Responsible meant dependable. Dependable meant available. Available meant used. We all knew the script. Dinner wasn't served yet when it happened. We were barely through appetizers. The football game murmured in the background. Glasses clinked. My dad cleared his throat the way he always did when he was about to announce something that wasn't actually a discussion. "So," he said, leaning back in his chair, "Emma and I were talking." My stomach tightened. Emma finally put her phone down. "You know how the market's been," she said, sighing dramatically. "Everything's just so expensive right now." I stayed quiet. I'd learned long ago that silence was safer than curiosity. My dad turned to me then, smiling like this was a favor. "And Dad thought it made sense if you helped out. Just for a bit." I blinked. "Helped out how?" "With the mortgage," she said, like she was asking me to pass the salt. The room went still. My mother paused mid-step. My uncle coughed. My dad watched my face closely, like he was waiting for the right reaction. "I already help," I said carefully. "I cover utilities and the insurance." Emma waved her hand dismissively. "This is different. Just a few months, maybe 6. "And how much?" I asked. My dad answered instead. "About $2,000 a month." I laughed. Not because it was funny, because my body didn't know what else to do. "No," I said. The word felt small but solid. Emma's smile vanished instantly. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, no," I repeated. "I can't do that." My dad frowned. "You can, you just don't want to." "That's not fair," I said. "You didn't even ask. You decided." Emma crossed her arms. "You're single. You don't have kids. What do you even need your money for?" That one stung. "I need it to live," I said, "and to save, and to not be constantly bailing everyone out." My dad's jaw tightened. "You've always been selfish," he said. There it was, the word they used whenever I stopped complying. "I'm not selfish," I replied, my voice shaking despite my efforts. "I'm setting a boundary." Emma scoffed. "Must be nice to suddenly grow a spine on Thanksgiving." My mother finally spoke. "Can we not do this today?" But it was already done. "No," my dad said sharply. "We're doing this now." He turned to me fully. "Your sister is struggling," he said. "Family helps family." "I've been helping," I said, "for years." He stood up. "So you're really saying no?" "Yes." The word hung in the air. He stared at me like I'd just insulted him personally. "Then you can leave," he said. I laughed again, softer this time. "What?" "You heard me," he snapped. "If you won't support your family, you don't get to sit at this table." Emma looked satisfied. My mother looked horrified. "You're kicking her out?" she asked. "He made her choice," my dad said. I stood slowly, heart pounding. "You're serious?" "Yes," he said. "Get your things." For a moment, I thought about apologizing, about backtracking, about doing what I always did to keep the peace. Then I realized something. I was already paying more than I ever admitted. "I'm leaving," I said quietly, "but not for the reason you think." My dad scoffed. "Don't be dramatic." I grabbed my coat. Emma rolled her eyes. "God, you always make everything about you." I paused at the door. "Out of curiosity," I said, turning back, "how much is left on the mortgage?" Emma frowned. "Why?" "Just wondering." My dad hesitated. "About 180,000, he said. I nodded slowly. "Interesting," I murmured. "What's interesting?" Emma snapped. I didn't answer. I walked out into the cold, my heart racing, my hands shaking, not from fear, but from something else. Because as I sat in my car, staring at the house I'd helped keep afloat for years, a realization settled over me like a quiet storm. They had no idea. None of them did. And if you think getting kicked out of Thanksgiving was the worst part of this story, you haven't heard what I found out next. I didn't drive away right away. I sat there in my car, engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel, staring at the warm glow of the windows I'd just walked out of. Inside, they were probably already reframing the story. I could hear it without hearing it. She's always been difficult. She never helps unless she's praised. She chose money over family. They'd been doing that my whole life. The cold crept in slowly, seeping through my coat, but I didn't move. My phone buzzed in my lap. A text from my mother. "Please come back inside. Let's talk." I closed my eyes. Talk never meant listening in that house. It meant convincing me to bend. I typed back, "I'm not coming back tonight. I love you." The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Nothing came through. I started the car and pulled away, the tires crunching over gravel like punctuation at the end of a sentence that had been waiting years to finish. I didn't go home. I went to a diner instead. One of those places that never really closes, where the lights are too bright and the coffee tastes burned but comforting. The kind of place where no one expects you to explain why your eyes are red. I slid into a booth and ordered coffee I didn't need. As I waited, my mind replayed the moment over and over. "You can leave." He'd said it like I was a guest who overstayed her welcome, not like a daughter who'd helped keep that house standing. Because that was the part they didn't know, or maybe didn't want to know. 3 years earlier, when my dad had called me in a panic about temporary cash flow issues, I'd wired money without hesitation. It started small, a few hundred here, 1,000 there, utilities, insurance, just until things stabilize. I never asked for receipts. I trusted them. Then the payments became regular, predictable. 2,000 a month, every month, labeled family support in my banking app so I wouldn't think too hard about it. I'd convinced myself it was normal, that this was what the responsible one did. I took a sip of coffee and laughed quietly to myself. They really thought they were asking me for more? My phone buzzed again. This time, a message from Emma. "Wow, Dad's crying. Hope you're happy." There it was. Guilt, wrapped in accusation. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my banking app, scrolled. Month after month of transfers stared back at me. Over $70,000. My throat tightened, and suddenly, something clicked. The way my dad never worried about late notices anymore, the way Emma talked about refinancing like it was casual, the way no one ever thanked me, because to them, it wasn't generosity, it was obligation. I pulled up the mortgage account number my dad had once texted me by accident. I'd never looked it up before. I did now. The balance matched what he'd said at the table, 180,000. But the payment history? My stomach dropped. The last 36 payments? Mine. Every single one. My hands started shaking. I wasn't helping. I wasn't chipping in. I was paying their mortgage. The waitress appeared, refilling my coffee, oblivious to the way my entire understanding of my family was unraveling. "You okay, honey?" she asked kindly. I nodded, even though it wasn't true. "I think so," I said. But I wasn't, because suddenly Thanksgiving made sense. Why Emma assumed, why my dad felt entitled, why my no felt like betrayal instead of surprise. They weren't asking for help, they were demanding continuation, and I'd just threatened their stability. If this story is hitting close to home, if you've ever been the one everyone leaned on without asking what it cost you, take a breath. And if stories like this resonate, make sure you subscribe to Scarlight Stories. These moments don't always get talked about, but they happen more often than people admit. I drove home after midnight. My apartment felt quieter than usual, safer, like it belonged to me again. I slept badly, dreamed of doors closing, of plates shattering, of my name being called like a complaint. The next morning, my dad called. I let it ring.
He left a voicemail. "You embarrassed me," he said, his voice tight. "You made your sister feel unsafe. Call me back when you're ready to apologize." I deleted it. Instead, I called the bank. "Hi," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I have a question about a mortgage I've been paying on." The woman on the line was polite, professional. "Yes, ma'am. Are you listed as a cosigner?" "No," I said, "but I've made every payment for 3 years." There was a pause. "That's unusual," she said carefully. "I know," I replied. "What rights does that give me?" Another pause, longer this time. "Let me transfer you to someone," she said. By the time I hung up, my hands were numb. I sat on my couch staring at nothing. I wasn't just hurt, I was angry. Not explosive anger, the quiet kind that rearranges things inside you permanently. That afternoon, my mother came by unannounced. She stood in my doorway, eyes tired, voice soft. "You didn't have to leave like that," she said. "I was told to," I replied. She sighed. "Your father didn't mean, he meant exactly what he said," I cut in. "Why didn't you tell me I was paying the mortgage?" Her face drained of color. "You knew?" she whispered. "So you did know," I said. She sank onto my couch. "We didn't think of it that way," she said weakly. "You offered." "I offered help, not ownership." She pressed her hands to her face. "Emma's scared," she said. "She thought you'd never say no." That stung more than I expected. "Why?" I asked. "Because I never had before?" My mother didn't answer. Silence filled the room. Then I asked the question that had been building in my chest. "If I stop paying," I said slowly, "what happens?" She looked up at me, fear flashing in her eyes. "That house, it's all we have." I nodded. "Exactly." She reached for my hand. "Please don't do anything drastic. It'll destroy the family." I pulled my hand back gently. "The family was fine destroying me," I said. "This is just the first time it costs them something." She left shortly after, tears in her eyes. I didn't feel victorious. I felt clear. That night, I drafted an email.
To my dad, to Emma, to my mother. I laid out the numbers, the dates, the amounts, the truth. I ended with one sentence. I will no longer be paying a mortgage on a house I don't own or control. I hovered over send. My heart pounded. Then I clicked it. If you're still with me right now, you're at the turning point, the moment where everything shifts from quiet resentment to unavoidable consequences. And if you want to see how this unfolds, make sure you're subscribed to Scarlight Stories, because what happened after that email sent my family into chaos. Within minutes, my phone exploded. Calls, texts, voicemails. I didn't answer any of them because for the first time in my life, I wasn't reacting, I was deciding. And the truth I'd uncovered, it was only the beginning.
The first voicemail came from my dad. He didn't yell. That was new. His voice was low, tight, controlled, in a way that told me he was trying very hard not to lose whatever leverage he thought he still had. "You don't get to do this," he said. "You don't get to pull the rug out from under us and call it boundaries." I listened to it once, then deleted it. The second voicemail was from Emma. She was crying, not the quiet kind, the performative kind. "You promised," she sobbed. "You promised you'd always help. What am I supposed to do now? Do you want us to lose the house?" That word again, us, like I hadn't been the only one carrying it. I deleted that one too. By the third voicemail, I stopped listening altogether. I turned my phone off and sat in the silence of my apartment, the kind of silence that feels loud because your nervous system isn't used to peace yet. I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was afraid, because I was thinking about every holiday where I paid but didn't get thanked, every time my sister upgraded something just this once, every comment about how lucky I was not to have kids, as if my life didn't count because no one depended on me. They hadn't just crossed a boundary, they'd built their lives on the assumption I'd never draw one. The next morning, I woke up to an email from the bank, not automated, personal. They wanted documentation, proof of payments, clarification of intent. I sent everything, every transfer, every note, every temporary contribution that somehow lasted years. By noon, I had an appointment scheduled with a financial attorney. By evening, my dad showed up at my door. No call, no warning, just a knock sharp enough to rattle something loose inside my chest. I didn't open it right away. I looked through the peephole and saw him standing there, jaw clenched, hands shoved deep into his coat pockets like he was holding himself together by force. I opened the door. "What do you want?" I asked. "To talk," he said, "not through lawyers, not through emails." I didn't involve lawyers. I involved facts. He stepped inside without waiting to be invited. "You blindsided us," he said, pacing. "You humiliated me." I closed the door calmly. "You kicked me out of Thanksgiving," I said, publicly. "That was different," he snapped. "Because you were in control," I replied. That stopped him. He turned to me, eyes sharp. "You think you're clever?" "I think I'm done," I said. He laughed bitterly. "You've always been dramatic." "Funny," I said. "You didn't think that when my money was keeping your house." His face changed. Not anger, calculation. "You chose to help," he said carefully. "No one forced you." "No," I agreed. "You just let me believe I was helping when I was actually replacing you." His nostrils flared. "Watch your tone. Watch your entitlement," I said. He stared at me for a long moment, then softened his voice. "You don't understand how hard things have been," he said. "The market, the stress, your sister." "Don't," I said. "Don't make this about her." "She's family," he insisted. "So am I. Or was I just a payment plan?" The words hung between us. He looked away. That told me everything. "If you stop paying," he said quietly, "we'll default." "I know. And if that happens, your mother will lose everything." I took a slow breath. "Then why did you risk it?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he did something I never expected. He sat down. "I thought you'd never say no," he admitted. There it was, the truth.
"You raised me to be reliable," I said. "You didn't raise me to be respected." He scoffed. "You're twisting things." "No," I said. "I'm finally seeing them clearly." He stood abruptly. "If you go through with this," he said, voice shaking now, "don't expect forgiveness." I met his eyes. I wasn't expecting permission. He left without another word. That afternoon, Emma posted something on social media. Not directly about me. Never directly.
A vague post about betrayal and people who abandon family when things get hard. The comments rolled in fast. Support, validation, praise. For her. I watched it without reacting, because something had shifted inside me. I no longer needed them to understand. I needed them to stop using me. That night, I met with the attorney. She was calm, direct, thorough. "You have options," she said. "Based on the payment history, you could pursue an equitable interest." "Meaning?" I asked. "Meaning," she replied, "you've effectively been acting as the lender. In some cases, that entitles you to partial ownership, or at least reimbursement." My heart thudded. "I don't want the house," I said quickly. She nodded. "Most people don't. They want fairness." Fairness? That word felt strange in my mouth. "And if I do nothing?" I asked. "Then they default," she said, "and the bank takes over." I sat back, exhaling. For the first time, the outcome wasn't about emotion, it was about choice. On my way home, my mother called. I answered this time. "Your father's furious," she said immediately. "Emma's a wreck." "I know," I replied. "You've put us in an impossible position," she said. I was quiet for a moment. "Do you know what's impossible? Living your life as a financial secret." She sighed. "We didn't think you'd take it this far." "That's the problem. You never thought about me at all." She started crying. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I don't want to lose the house." "I don't want to lose myself," I said. Silence stretched between us. "What do you want?" she asked finally. I thought about it. "I want transparency," I said. "I want accountability, and I want my name off anything I don't own." She sniffed. "Your sister will never agree." "Then that's her choice," I replied. After we hung up, I sat on my couch staring at the wall. I wasn't celebrating. I was grieving. The version of my family I thought I had. The role I thought I was valued for. They weren't gone because I said no. They were gone because they never existed the way I believed. If you're still following this story, you're watching what happens when the reliable one stops absorbing everyone else's consequences. And if this resonates, make sure you're subscribed to Scarlight Stories, because in the next part, the truth comes out publicly, and my family does something they never thought I'd survive. Because the moment the bank stepped in, everything exploded. The bank didn't wait for my family to sort out their feelings. Banks never do. 3 days after my meeting with the attorney, a certified letter arrived at my parents' house. I didn't know that yet. I only knew something had changed when my phone lit up with 17 missed calls before noon, all from Emma. I ignored them. Then my mother called. I answered, already braced. "They're sending someone," she said, her voice thin and frantic. "An assessor from the bank." I closed my eyes. "That was fast," I said. "You told them, didn't you?" she whispered. "I told them the truth," I replied. "There's a difference." She started crying immediately. "Emma's losing it," she kept saying. "You planned this, that you wanted the house." I laughed softly. That house has never felt like mine, even when I was paying for it. The assessor came the next morning. Not dramatic, not cruel, just professional. Clipboards, photos, questions. And suddenly, what had been a private family arrangement was a documented financial reality. My dad called me that afternoon. Not angry, desperate. "They're talking about foreclosure timelines, short ones." I leaned back against my kitchen counter. "I should talk to your lawyer," I said. "We can't afford one," he snapped. "Not anymore." There it was. The house of cards had finally been named. "I told you to refinance. You didn't."
You said no, he shot back. I said no to continuing, I corrected, not to honesty. Silence. Then his voice dropped.
"If we lose the house," he said, "it'll be because of you." I felt something inside me harden. "No," I replied. "It'll be because you built a life you couldn't afford and handed me the bill." He hung up. By that evening, Emma posted again. This time, it wasn't vague. It was a long, emotional post about betrayal, about being abandoned by blood, about how some people forget where they came from when they get comfortable. She didn't name me. She didn't have to. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me, some curious, some accusatory, some pretending to be neutral while clearly taking sides. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I met my attorney again. "They're panicking," she said after reviewing the updates. "That's normal when accountability arrives." "What happens next?" I asked. She folded her hands. "The bank will push for resolution. Either the loan is brought current, refinanced, or the property enters foreclosure. And me?" She met my eyes. "You decide whether you want reimbursement or leverage." The word lingered. Leverage. "I don't want to punish them," I said. She nodded. "You don't have to, but you also don't have to protect them from consequences anymore." That night, my mother came over again. She looked older somehow, smaller. "I raised you better than this," she said weakly. I didn't rise to it. "I raised you to be responsible," I replied. "You didn't raise me to disappear." She sat across from me, twisting her hands. "Your father's health," she started. "I know, and I care, but I'm not his life raft." She looked up, tears spilling. "Emma's talking about moving back home, with the kids." My stomach dropped. "Kids?" I asked. She nodded. I hadn't known. Another secret, another assumption that I'd just absorb it. "That makes this harder. It makes it clearer," I replied. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. "Who are you?" she asked softly. I thought about that. "I'm the version of me you never had to listen to." She left shortly after, without hugging me. The next week was chaos. The bank requested documents my parents didn't have. Emma blamed me openly to extended family. My dad stopped calling entirely. Then, one afternoon, my attorney called me. "They want to negotiate," she said. "Who?" I asked. "Your parents, through counsel." I laughed. "They suddenly have a lawyer?" "They borrowed for one," she said dryly. "Figures." The meeting was scheduled for Friday. I didn't sleep the night before, not because I was scared, because I was grieving for the house I grew up in, for the family dinners that would never feel the same, for the version of myself that thought love was proven by sacrifice. If you're still with me here, this is the part where most people cave, where guilt wins because it's familiar. And if stories about finally choosing yourself resonate with you, make sure you're subscribed to Scarlight Stories. What happens next isn't revenge, it's reckoning. The meeting was tense. My dad wouldn't look at me. Emma looked like she'd been crying for days, but her eyes were sharp, defensive. Their lawyer spoke first. "They're willing to acknowledge your financial contributions," he said carefully, "and offer repayment over time." I raised an eyebrow. "Over how much time?" I asked. He cleared his throat. 10 years. I almost laughed. "That's not repayment," I said. "That's another dependency." Emma slammed her hand on the table. "You're unbelievable," she snapped. "You know we can't afford more than that." "That's not my emergency," I replied calmly. My dad finally spoke. "What do you want?" he asked, voice rough. I looked at him, at the man who raised me to be useful before being loved. "I want my money returned, or my name attached to what I paid for." Emma's face went white. "You want the house?" she whispered. "No," I said. "I want fairness." The room fell silent. My attorney leaned forward. "There are options," she said. "A lien, a partial equity transfer, or a structured sale." "A sale?" my mother whispered. "Yes," my attorney replied. "So everyone walks away with something." Emma shook her head violently. "No, no, this is our home." I met her eyes. "It was my responsibility," I said, "but never my choice." The meeting ended without resolution.
But something important happened in that room. They finally saw me, not as backup, not as a resource, as a person with leverage. When I left, my dad called after me. "You've changed," he said. I turned back. "No," I replied. "I stopped pretending." That night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the ceiling. I didn't feel powerful. I felt steady. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what came next, because the final decision wasn't about money anymore. It was about whether my family would accept the truth or lose everything trying to avoid it. And in the final part of this story, you'll see what choice they made and how it changed all of us permanently. The house didn't go into foreclosure, not immediately. My parents stalled. They filed extensions, asked for reviews, claimed confusion, hoped, quietly, desperately, that something would save them without requiring them to actually change. That something used to be me. It wasn't anymore. For weeks after the failed negotiation, there was silence. No calls, no texts, no vague posts from Emma. Just the heavy quiet that comes when everyone is waiting for someone else to blink. I didn't. Instead, I focused on my own life in ways I never had before. I slept better. I stopped flinching when my phone buzzed. I realized how much of my anxiety had been tied to money that wasn't even mine to worry about. One afternoon, I logged into my bank account and noticed something strange. My balance stayed the same. No automatic transfer, no family support line item, just stillness. I stared at the screen longer than I needed to. It felt wrong and right. 2 months passed. Then my mother called. Her voice sounded older, thinner. "We're selling," she said. I closed my eyes. "The house?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Yes." I didn't say anything. "The bank gave us a window," she continued. "If we sell now, before it escalates, we can pay off the loan and avoid foreclosure." "That's good," I said honestly. She hesitated. "Emma's furious." I exhaled slowly. "I'm sure." "She says you forced this," my mother added. I didn't argue. I just wanted you to hear it from me, not from her.
"Thank you," I replied. After we hung up, I sat on my couch for a long time. I didn't feel victorious. I felt finished. The house sold 3 weeks later. Not for what my parents hoped. Not enough to walk away comfortable, but enough. The mortgage was paid, the debt cleared, the crisis contained. And for the first time in years, my family was standing on ground they actually owned again, even if it wasn't the ground they wanted. My attorney called me the day after the sale closed. "They're prepared to reimburse you," she said. "A lump sum, partial but significant." "How significant?" I asked. She named a number. It was less than I'd paid, but more than I expected to ever see again. "Do I have to agree?" I asked. "No," she said. "You could pursue the rest." I thought about it, about the years, the holidays, the roles. "I'll take it," I said, "and I want it documented that there are no further expectations." "Done," she replied. The money hit my account 2 days later. I didn't celebrate. I sat quietly at my kitchen table and let myself feel something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Relief. Not because I'd gotten paid, because I was free. Emma didn't speak to me after the sale. Not at first. She moved in with a friend, then another, then eventually out of state. I heard all of this through my mother. Filtered, softened, careful. "She's struggling," my mother said one evening. "She feels abandoned." I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "I hope she finds her footing." It was the truth. My dad didn't call for months. When he finally did, it wasn't to argue. It wasn't to accuse. It was to ask a question. "Are you okay?" he said. I paused. "Yes," I replied. "I am." He exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath for a long time. "We're renting now," he said quietly. "It's different." "I imagine it is." "I should have handled things better," he added. It wasn't an apology, but it was closer than anything I'd ever gotten.
"I'm not angry anymore," I said. "I just won't go back." "I know," he said. And for the first time, I believed him. That Thanksgiving, I didn't go to my parents' house. I didn't host either. I spent it with friends, people who asked me to bring nothing but myself. We cooked together, laughed, burned a pie and ate it anyway. No one asked me for anything. No one tested my boundaries. No one assumed my value was measured by what I could provide. Halfway through the evening, someone raised a glass and said, "I'm grateful for people who show up honestly." I felt something tighten in my chest. Later that night, alone in my apartment, I thought about the version of me who'd walked out of my parents' house that Thanksgiving, shaking, confused, certain she'd done something unforgivable. I wished I could go back and sit beside her in that car. I would have told her this: saying no doesn't make you cruel, it makes you visible. And some people only love you when you're invisible. If you're still here with me, thank you for staying through a story that wasn't neat, wasn't easy, and didn't end with everyone holding hands. That's not how it usually goes. But if you want more stories about reclaiming yourself after years of being the responsible one, make sure you subscribe to Scarlight Stories, because sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't saving everyone else, it's finally saving yourself.